Good morning and welcome to the Capital Gang. I am Oscar Semoyamsoke, and as Moses of a morning show would say, with a bevy of topics for discussion this morning. On to my right, I have the ever-positive Joseph Otieno wearing a Murian shirt, this time not in a UPC shirt. You're most welcome to Gang once again, Joseph.
Oscar, please ask him to share with the listeners what he just said about me before the show started.
Well, that's Patricia, the producer.
I'm delighted to be introduced by both the producer and the presenter. Yes, all I said was that Miri is the school, and Miri is the national school, and Miri is the future, and that if you go to Tara School, you're a national record.
Right.
But also, Oscar, it's a pleasure to be here, and always a pleasure. And by the way, greetings from many of your fans out there, people who think that on Saturdays this program gives them hope.
Fantastic. You know, Joseph, if you have time, sometime next week, I'll invite you to Taiba International School, so you have a look around.
I've been waiting for that invite, and
it's on.
I really hope it happens next week.
Super, it's on.
Thank you, sir.
I have Benjamin Katana, another gangster that we usually host here, of the money man of the National Unity Party, NUP. Good morning, Benjamin, and welcome to Gang.
Good morning, Oscar and team. It's always a pleasure to be part of the gang and to correct the record. Entire school is a great school. You should not use one bad apple.
No, actually,
paint a negative picture about Entire school.
A few of you guys are not bad.
Did you go to Ontario School, Benjamin?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Fortunately.
Okay. We have a guest, Emily Comfort Maracho, Professor Emily Comfort Maracho. Have I said it correctly? Maracho? Maracho.
Yes.
Okay. She's Associate Professor, Media Studies of the Uganda Christian University. You're most welcome to Gang. For the first time, we're happy to host you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. And having media people, just a flashback to last night in the media, Donald Trump and Zelensky and his assistants, J.D. Vance. Have you watched bits of that?
No, not yet.
You've missed all that entertainment. Joseph, did you watch a bit of that?
No, I saw a clip. It was extraordinary, and I think if there's a new world, there's a new world order in Washington, and I think if there's a new world, we thought it was the impossibility of Ukraine being, what it is today. But I think the new world is what's happening in Washington, and I think Africa should be watching, and I think this should be an opportune moment for us to reset the button, because I think the New World Order must really be beyond what's happened in Washington yesterday. It was a humiliating thing to watch, but it is interesting that maybe in Zelensky's case, it was a realization that, well, you can't depend on these guys.
It was an ambush, kind of. He'd been invited for a dressing down.
Very patronizing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, very scared, because America still remains the fundamental big guy in town. But in terms of global polity, I think African countries were right to review their positions, and credit to South Africa that led an Africanist position on the Ukraine-Russia war, and I think it should help to re-expose the reaction that the U.S. gave to the Cuban missiles situation, and the fact that Cuba continues to be boxed by the U.S. simply because of that incident at the time. And so this global hypocrisy must be an opportunity for Africa to wake up, and so that we're able to take our mainstream position. That, I think, is absolutely urgent.
Do we get lessons? Because he'd gone to sign a paper that's here, your minerals, you can't take them. So Africa, we've been signing away those minerals.
A friend of mine who's a senior banker, a Ugandan who's a senior banker somewhere in Europe, said that, in a way, I think the God of Ukraine did serve and went into the heads of the two Americans. And so we hope that it's good that the deal didn't happen, because it's true, it was a bit of signing off of Ukraine. And that's why I'm saying that, well, Africa, the richest continent with the minerals and in minerals, that next time an African leader or African company or African individual seeks to have a discussion with anybody of the Trump side,
they should refuse to sign.
They should rethink their positions urgently.
Okay. Well, you can, if you have a comment to make on that one, Benjamin, go ahead.
Well, basically, I think what happened, it could be that previously such humiliating episodes have happened away from the public eye, but I think it is that incident painted a clear picture of the skewed global world order, where power resides in the hands of the mighty. I remember some time back when people in Africa were joking about African leaders being bundled on a bus. When Western leaders, when they are visiting Africa, roads are closed and everything is done to give honor to the visiting Western leaders. So I think the difference between Trump and other Western leaders is Western leaders have always, of course, bullied weaker leaders, but behind the scenes. Now there's a shift. There's a shift. I think the Trump style of diplomacy, where he doesn't hide his power, where he doesn't hide his intentions and his purpose. But also, I think we are going to see the dwindling of the American hegemony on the global scene, because it has always, among other things, military might, economic power, but it has always been born out of the knowledge that when you are a friend of America, you have protection, you have guarantees of protection from America. Then support, you know that when Joseph is the president of Uganda and the call comes through and he doesn't honor, then you'll have problems with aid. But now if you're saying there's no aid, and things of that nature, it means that you're going to see declining power of the America on the global scene. And I want to concur with Joseph that it's a strong lesson to the African leaders that they must put their houses in order, not to wait upon today it is Trump, tomorrow it might be a president of Russia or a president of China. Doing that, they operate from the knowledge that you need them. They don't need you as much. You depend on them. Yet in actual sense, they also need us so much. They exploit our minerals. They have us run around fighting their wars around the world. It has not started today. Some people's grandparents here had the misfortune of fighting all over the world under the flag of the British Empire. Today, the fighting might not be using arms, but you have African leaders lining up to vote for U.S. positions, even in this conflict in the Middle East, even on the most immoral positions. But African leaders are pushed to line up behind the position taken by the powerful nations, because they don't want to be disadvantaged when they go around begging for support from these countries. So it's a very strong lesson to African leaders, and not just in the global south, but also leaders across the world, that they must work towards building their nations so that they are able to be independent in the actual sense and self-sustaining. But of course, it's a shame that leaders would behave in a manner they behaved when the whole world is watching.
Well, time to come back to Uganda, all the way to Kawempe by-election. So eventually, were you able to get a candidate nominated for the by-election in Kawempe, NUP?
Yes, we eventually did. our candidate, Narkola Rimbaz Elias, who actually happens to be my classmate in law school, is the leading contender in that constituency. He was eventually nominated amidst harassment and brutality. He was arrested immediately after nominations, taken to Kawempe police station, held without charge, and eventually released. But before the nominations, the chief campaigner, who is our head of mobilization in the Kawempe division, Mr. Serviri, was also abducted in what has become the characteristic style of operations of the security forces in Uganda by officers wearing uniforms of bearing inscriptions of Joint Anti-Terrorism Task Force, and held for some time. But when we raised an alarm and the information went out, he was released and the documents were brought to Electoral Commission and the candidate was nominated. We have had a number of our people arrested. Some have been released without charge, but it's a repeat of how the 2021 elections were conducted, how the elections of 2016 were conducted. So it has become the script and the norm of the security forces to, having taken on an anti-people stance, to be relied on to do politics on behalf of the ruling party. But with all those challenges that I have mentioned, we are confident that we have the support of the people in Kawempe North, and we are confident that with all the intimidation, the harassment, and the brutality notwithstanding, we will be able to win that election.
There had been rumor that your candidate had been abducted even before the nomination. Was there any truth in that?
No, it's the head of mobilization who had the nomination documents.
Right.
Yes, who was abducted prior to the nominations. For him, he was arrested immediately after nominations.
And what was the reason for arrest? Was he causing chaos?
Not at all. But it has become it's no longer a reason of why the person is arrested, because that is the way the NRM now prepares for elections. The explanation, which was never formal, was that he was trying to hold a rally after the nominations. But all the candidates held rallies after the nominations. And I have seen some of the media houses captured and relayed to the public the rally of the NRM candidate, the rally of some of the other candidates, but they were deliberate in making sure that they disrupt him and he's not able to carry out that rally. But others did carry out the rallies. In fact, that is why he was never charged, because if he had committed any offense, if he had gone against the law, there would have been a charge brought against him. But there hasn't been any to date. He was arrested and released without charge, clearly showing that the intention was to disrupt, paralyze, and cripple his campaign machinery.
But I was in Kawempe on that day, Wednesday, and roads were closed and so on. There's a fear of NUP. I mean, your supporters, Benjamin, come across as rowdy, violent, fearless. So, you think police just gets ready for NUP?
I think, and I hope that you have also not fallen for the regime narratives, because manipulation of situations is part of how fascist and dictatorial regimes thrive. I can tell you confidently that none of the NUP supporters has been charged or convicted for engaging in any electoral malpractices, has been convicted for any rowdiness or violence in elections. The Supreme Court of Uganda, on various occasions, both in Dr. Besigye versus Kaguta Museveni and the Electoral Commission, and Mama Mbabazi versus Kaguta Museveni and the Electoral Commission, has had the opportunity and occasion to hold that indeed it is NRM which has relied on violence in electoral processes. So the narrative that our supporters come off as rowdy is just part of the regime propaganda machinery to discredit.
Or maybe you don't know them, Benjamin.
No, I do.
They wear these red. They wear the red berets.
Just like the NRM put on yellow.
And even on social media, they can come across as very aggressive people.
Not necessarily. Yes. So and in any case, by the way, aggressiveness is not an offense. If anybody commits an offense, there are established mechanisms for dealing with breach of the law. But arresting people, holding them without trial, releasing them without charge, has never been an acceptable standard, both in our constitution and in any other law. Has never been an acceptable approach to dealing with fear of disruption. Our people are not aggressive, they are enthusiastic. They are not aggressive, they are enthusiastic, and it's acceptable in every political environment. If you don't have, maybe it is the hired supporters normally who are not enthusiastic, because for them it does not go to the core of their belief. But our supporters are driven by the love they have for the idea and the organization. So enthusiasm, even in games, if you go to a football match and you find people who are not cheering, you should be worried about their loyalty to the team. Yes, I can state with confidence that our people are enthusiastic, but not aggressive.
Professor Emily Comfort Marashto, I don't know if you followed the by-election in Kawempe. It has been, as Benjamin will not accept, but has been close to rowdy. And is there a case, you're a media professor, is there a case for NUP to rebrand, or are they suffering from state violence?
Thank you. First of all, I think it's important to also mention why we are having a by-election there. That it forms part of the polity, and we are having a by-election there because somebody who was holding that seat died, and the circumstance of their death and how they got to be in prison for a very long time and so on, all really demonstrate the nature of our politics. And so it's only
You're
fair.
saying there's an injustice there that has not been addressed.
I don't know, Oscar, if there is any way to discuss our elections without talking about injustice around it. When you think about the level playing field, when you think about the nature of the candidates, you think about the outcome of the elections, the complaints that surround the election outcomes, the issues of legitimacy, the role of money in these elections, the role of the security personnel. When you think and of course also the conduct of the Electoral Commission itself, when you think about all of these and put them together, it's difficult to not have justice as an issue of that election, because if justice is fairness, then we have to think about that as well. And so it is easy to say NUP supporters are just rowdy people, the public is fearing them. But I think sometimes we underestimate the environment, how much the environment conditions the politics. And so what we are seeing, especially around in the central area, is the response towards a perception of injustice in the way that people are elected, in the way that our electoral process is practiced. And so I've been a student. By the way, I chair the Media Democracy and Development Research Group at UCU, and so my business is to study media and development and democracy. And so when you follow right from 2001, especially the nature of the elections, and even when you go to just the by-elections, their character. The character of by-elections, the character of national elections, the presidential ones, all of them tend to give you the idea that the environment is conditioning our politics. And so it's easy to blame those who are responding to what they find to be unfair political processes. And the rest of us who can't be part. By the way, I was impressed that up to 10 candidates were nominated. Sometimes when you look at the character of politics, you think that who are these brave people who are still going into politics? Because I don't think I have the energy and anything to even brave it. So you begin to look at these people who are going into it as some sort of special brave people. And in by-elections, in many of the elections also, you find that the real battle happens these days within the primaries. Why? Of the NRM. Why? Because, again, there is this perception that once you win that party flag, it's almost a given that you will get through in at least many of the constituencies. There will be outliers like Kawempe North, where the people outside of the NRM can be confidently speaking here and saying we are in the lead. I don't know how they know that already, but in most cases, if you're an NRM candidate, you automatically feel that you have now won the race. Yeah.
Well, it's a good point you bring up, because when they have their own primaries, it's also another war zone completely.
Yeah.
The NRM.
Where there is no aggressiveness.
or should I say where aggressiveness is allowed.
Yeah.
You're most welcome to Gang, late to Mwalimu's class, Honorable Kasule Sebunya. Welcome to Gang.
Thank you, sir. As always, a privilege to be here. I'm sorry I'm late. Some of it was for my making. I stood to watch Trump still responding to what happened last night. I call it night because it was night. So he was still talking about it. So when those few minutes made me lose a lot of time.
Well,
I'm here.
Yes. Well, we had a chat about it at the beginning of the show, and Noavine Josti, one of our regular listeners, says, I liked the way Zelensky put his foot down and defended his position. It's like those guys had planned to devour him. It was a 5-0 Zelensky, Noavine says. Nice shot, though, despite the late-night television viewing. So I hope some people have already told you.
I know, but anyway, it was, I think, for the first time where people don't camouflage, put on good faces when they're discussing real issues. It was open in the media. Even the most developed media was shocked that this was going on in front of them. And maybe if somebody in the media had their way out, they would have said, please, can you go behind and discuss it? Then you come and give us the clean news. So otherwise, it shows a lot, and maybe we should learn from it.
Joseph Otieno, did UPC manage to field a candidate in Kawempe?
Yeah.
Sorry, I should reword my question to begin with. Did UPC 1 or UPC 2 manage to field candidates for Kawempe?
There is official what is known as UPC 1. That is the excellent fast robotic government of 1962 to 71. And there is another one, UPC 2, of excellent deliveries between 1981 and 85, notwithstanding the mess that NRM was subjecting the people here in Luweero, up and including near Kawempe. But the UPC 1 and 2 that you refer, I don't belong to any of those. I belong to Uganda People's Congress, the mainstream national political party. Now, yes, unfortunately, we do not have a candidate on a UPC ticket, but we have somebody very close to UPC, that is Eddie, the independent, Eddie Maitum, who is an Okeo in Kawempe. Eddie is Mama Miriam's second son, fantastic guy. And he's offered himself as an independent. I didn't discuss this with him. I just saw it in the press. But by the way, he's generally a very, very deep guy, very religious. He's a bishop. And considering that Kawempe is where his mother comes from, Emily's right to talk about being too early to speculate which direction it might go. But I think Eddie will have a good run, because he's a very composed, very balanced guy, very deep. But of course, because of the nature of our polity, sometimes we will pick personalities, we will pick names, and not go into the details and depth of what programs. And I think if you consider the mess in this Kampala, you need the UPC values, and I think the nearest UPC values that would be presented by AD in the event that he won. But of course, that's too early for that. As a political party, unfortunately, because of some of the points raised by Emily, UPC is not clearly in position to be very consistent as far as some of these deliveries and deliverables are concerned. And I think I already saw on social media a number of people saying, was Eddie betraying the party? I'm sure possibly he was rather not sure to whom he should go for the ticket. Should he go to his own brother Jimmy, who is illegitimate officially, or to, a Court of Appeal ruled against Jimmy. He's not our official leader, but he's controlling Uganda House by force, thanks to his some other networks. Or Peter Walubiri, who, since he stole the elections, he's an absent presence on the political scene, which is a real shame to this party and a real shame to this country, considering the manner in which NRA now has this capacity to present the kind of impunity that it did, particularly, unfortunately, against NUP candidates and leaders, particularly in Uganda, and without prejudice. I say that very emphatically and very deliberately, because people talk sectarianism and identity politics, but it's NRA that practice that. Some of the things that is being suggested by our NUP colleague about whether or not their members are aggressive, I think, Emily, you're right again to talk about this. It's not all about perception. I was at Kawempe at the vigil for the late MP, and you could see the anger in the population, the anger amongst the young people about the circumstances of the death of this guy. And it was extremely a sensitive moment, and that's why the insensitivity that continued all the way to Budu Massacre around this guy's burial. And this is something which is very real and very recent. It's not surprising that NUP members, and particularly the young members, would be generally quite annoyed. Now, part of the contradiction is that NRA is lucky that they've been around for too long, 40 years. So if the young people of Kawempe and the young people of this country, particularly the young people of Uganda, were to borrow my age and see the experience and narrative of what NRA was in Uganda and at Kampala, and the claim that they were having, that they were fighting for, you couldn't compare the NRA arguments of 40 years ago, 35 years ago, to the NRA that is actually busy beating up candidates, including here in Kawempe, literally kidnapping a candidate. That's absolutely unacceptable. Those things that they call drones that I don't like are referring to those vehicles. I was effectively kidnapped from my room in Micho in November 1987 and safe housed and narrowly escaped from the NRA brutality. I didn't expect that I would return to this and it would happen in Kampala at Kawempe. So my worry is that beyond whatever has happened, that this is a manifestation of possibly what is yet to come at the next election, which is basically hardly 10 months away. I think it's deliberate intimidation. I think it's total blackmail of the mindset of our people. I think it's to punch and push into fear. And for those of us who are absolute Democrats, we worry that in the absence of level playing field in our polity, the absence of legitimacy amongst the political class, this thing is going to breed apathy. And for scholars like Emily, and for people like me who are breeders of conviction for the future of our country, we should be very, very worried. younger people, as Emily, my Professor Emily, is concerned that she can't even imagine associating with politics and politicians. What about average young Ugandans who must claim this country and who must claim and make sure that NRA guys are not selling to Washington, considering what happened to Trump, because this country belongs to them? And if those people are to express themselves democratically and instead of going to the bush like a bamba and breaking people's necks, what alternative do you give to our people? Yesterday I was at a different program with somebody who's a researcher, and she says apparently, Oscar, that her research around Kampala, possibly predominantly Buganda, parts of the West, and I think a section of the North, I think part of West Nile actually, where they've so far visited, that the majority of the people are so apathetic that people are now telling them that there is no need to vote. The risks are that as we present Kawempe, you make the works of the Ochenos, people like me who fought and who campaigned for a very long time, that let's let go of the gun. Let's push politics of ideas and politics of issues. That let young people vent, if you call it their anger, through issues, and let us try and seek reconciliation. Let's try and seek a democratic process. Let's learn to win, and let's learn to lose, and let's learn to look for leaders who are good losers. That you lose like the Ochenos, then you accept that you'll play second fiddle, even if it's to a terrible regime until next time. But that you learn to become a responsible winner, like UPC always does, so that when you win for everybody else. Young Ugandans, who now are the majority of our people, need to engage much more constructively in politics. But if you see what's happening in Kawempe, you ask, like Emily, Professor, is saying, is it really worth it to go and rally around Ocheno in Nagongre, because I fear that the next thing will be drones coming to me in Nagongre? It's absolutely shameful. And I said, I genuinely didn't know that I would expect this at this stage. And particularly final one, Oscar, if you consider the goodwill that NRA had in Buganda as they're building their foundations, and if you consider the proximity of Kawempe, I don't know who advises Mr. Museveni, and I'm here to give him free advice, and please, free advice. If I was advising him, you can still retain power and play safe and play nice without necessarily brutalizing people. The kind of advice I would give him to leave a court-martial alone to discipline Iran soldiers and not try and militarize Ugandans. Yes.
Honorable Robert Kasule Sewunya.
Yes, please.
Do the violence in Kawempe, a lot of people attribute it to the state. Do you think it makes your party look bad? I mean, you fielded a candidate. I think, is it Ms. Nambi?
Yes, Nambi, the NRM flag bearer.
The NRM flag bearer. If you have violence in Kawempe before a by-election, do you think that harms your party? Because people, Joseph here is attributing to NRM. He's not talking to Museveni and not to the state.
This man is a god or something. It's very god. He was in Intungam and in Kone sub-region, monitoring, doing oversight on PDM and generally going around the country. I think he had nothing to do with it. Police was deployed essentially to control the traffic. This is a small place called Kawempe. And I've been in Kawempe this week like 4 times, because we were preparing for Prime Minister and others to go and check on the roads in Kawempe. Which she didn't, but she checked from roads in Chira. So I know the temperature.
There's a road back here behind Kamocha Market.
Yes.
That one she needs to check it very urgent.
Yeah, there are many roads that have been...
she should leave the roads that are
You may
okay.
need to have a by-election.
Because of time. No, there are many roads that are under construction in Kampala of recent, and of course...
This one, nothing is happening to it. It's terrible.
Development partners, one by one, we'll handle them, but the stock of bad roads is overwhelming.
Yes.
So I know the political temperatures in Kawempe, just like we saw it on TV. The NRM, the party I belong to, was also shocked. We have witnessed, I've been involved for almost 20 years in politics. We do nominations everywhere. This one was one of its kind, where we saw people fighting with the police. In fact, somebody said this was like it happened with Trump and Zelensky. Right in front of cameras. We don't know why it happened, but as we say, police will have to explain. This is a civil activity. Much as you are there to control traffic and whatever, why go over that extent of putting cannons?
I've been given a correction. It's called Old Kira Road.
Okay,
Old
Kira Road.
So take the Prime Minister there, please.
Okay.
Yes.
I pass there every day. I know the road. And we use it most frequent in order to cut the other traffic of the Upper Kira Road. So this was a civil function. Even the Electoral Commission, if you started blaming them, why, I think they were not aware of what was happening outside. And police is here to blame of mishandling such a simple exercise. And on social media, it almost looks like a war zone. So it's very unfortunate, and we think going forward, the election should be peaceful. It's near town. We don't need that confusion. Even on a normal day, you cannot move in Kampala. If I told you to move from, yesterday I was in Luwero, but to move from Chigogwa to the city center, you take 2 hours. Traffic. And of course, the posture of the political players also plays a part. And at this point, I would encourage our friends in, you're enthusiastic and sometimes aggressive, but help the people of Kampala, the northern end of Kampala. We don't need traffic jams caused by excited, enthusiastic supporters. We all want to picket in town to show support, to show vehicles, social media, pictures and whatever. But if they say there is no picketing, please go to one place and hold a rally. It will not do you bad. And with the time I've realized that some people like these aggressive, enthusiastic supporters, show support, but to a certain extent, we need somebody to represent the people. All of them. In fact, we come with flags, but we represent everybody. I can't say I'm here NRM, I was in Parliament, and I represented the people of NRM. No, that does not work. You represent everybody. And when people are coming to you, they don't come with their flags, or they don't come with their cards and say, I am so-and-so, can you help me? I've lost a person. I'm here, I don't have money to pay school fees for my children. Please, they come as with people with problems. So they don't come with their problems, with their party cards. So this is a person who is going to represent Kawempe. The Kawempe I know stems from Kawempe, the Kawempe of Gwaise, behind Gwaise, and it goes up to Chanja.
Very diverse.
It is very diverse. Yeah. It's not only at that point of where they were being nominated. So you could even say, after this nomination, I'll drive to Chanja, filled with something, and find my people and talk to them. But what I think, and I heard on the videos, is that the candidate I knew, who is my friend for a long time, Narukola, of NUP, who turned the NUP 3 months ago. I know he was DP, I know he was everything. Who turned you? So I don't think he wanted to have a confrontation with police. And I don't think the police wanted to confront him. But because the managers of the campaign of Narukola wanted to picket, to go walk from the nomination center and walked where they were going supposed to have a rally.
If you don't mind, could we say that really the lead people to take responsibility here are the Electoral Commission, because really they're the ones in charge of this process and they failed?
No, there's little they can do away from the polling center.
True.
There is very little, because as I said, this is a very congested area. They wanted people to come, and they limited them, told them in time, please come, maximum 4 people. Get nominated, walk away, drive away, and then have your rally somewhere. And they were not even in control of the places they were going to have rallies. So I think, and what I saw on social media was, immediately after the nomination of my friend Narukola, he wanted to walk, have a procession. And in the process of stopping the procession, the police was used a lot of force.
Brutal. You do not say the word.
Okay, brutal, yes, because it is what everybody saw. And unfortunately, that will play a big part in this whole process. But with the confidence I can say, everybody is annoyed, including my party leaders. Why and how? People must explain. You must not have this blanket blame the president. The president is not a god. He can't be everywhere. These were people in uniform. People in uniform are supposed to behave like people in uniform. We have sung the song of professionalizing the army, professionalizing the police. So they should know how to handle such cases without making...
Robert, I have a comment here from a regular listener on social media. Says, excuse me, says you cannot deny one Ugandan to use a facility after nomination today and allow another Ugandan to use the same facility ushered in and protected by all sorts of security agencies. So it seems like your candidate came, nearly in armored car and something.
No, our
and then others were not allowed.
No, our candidate came, got nominated, and drove away, and then went and held a rally. And I think there was no altercations or fighting of some sort, which is a good thing, which we would have wished also Narukola to have. Otherwise, it was not good, and does not help at the NRM. And I know if we had no internal contradictions also, because we also have a candidate, a stronger one, called Kaladi, who is independent, who is NRM, who has also refused to get her. Okay, they have engaged her, but her right to stand.
Just a quick comment.
Let me complete this one. But we are going to win this constituency without any fighting and violence. We can easily take Kawempe North. So we are still engaging her, but otherwise we are very confident that we can take Kawempe without violence, without using underhand methods, and everything can still go well. But otherwise...
let's get to the information from...
Yes, I just wanted to share information, which I'm not sure, I don't know if you watched the news yesterday. The independent candidate you just mentioned, Kaladi, was also crying about the brutality meted out to her campaign team by the Joint Anti-Terrorism Task Force in Kawempe. She even went ahead and mentioned names of the commanders. Maybe being from the NRM, she has the privilege of knowing those commanders.
People are camouflaging.
And so to say that that incident of the meting out brutality to Narukola is not an isolated incident, that there is a pattern of violence. Even for our case, it was preceded by the arrest of the members of the Election Management Committee, the raid on our headquarters, and the threats from the command of the armed forces saying NUP will whip. So there's a pattern of violence which has a relationship with the politics. And that coupled with the fusion that we have in our country, where you are saying that Museveni was in Ntungamo, but he doesn't have to be physically present in a place, but that there's a fusion between his personality and the state of Uganda. That when you are involved in an election as his opponent, or as someone that his political structure does not support, then the army and the police who have become by extension part of the political machinery of Museveni, believe that they have a duty to make sure they stop you. That explains the violence in all these elections. Because what interest would the police have in an election? Police is not one of the parties in an election, but because by extension it has become part of the political machinery, it feels it is duty bound to make sure they stop you and give an opportunity to the other person who is politically aligned to have leverage over you.
Yeah, but we all know.
And in addition, I have here a comment from on X from another listener who's saying if Nalukola was planning to have a procession and was handled that way, how do you justify the procession of the NRM candidate?
That's what I'm saying, that the police cannot be separated from the electioneering exercise in Uganda.
Why not?
Because one, much as they're not supposed to take sides, they're supposed to. Of course, they're involved. We know how Ugandans behave. So the professors there said the environment in which we grow sometimes also makes the people who they are. Our youth tend to want to engage with all sorts of things. We know how the man said their supporters are enthusiastic. You know how they want to engage with the enthusiastic supporters with the general crowd. The police must be involved. Guide the population. Pass here. Do this. And once the electoral commission says, "Please come to," then who will be there now to say, "We have come 20 or 50 or 1,000." The police is there to put those orders of electoral commission in place. It's not that when they say come to, the people will come to. They will come 1,000. So the police is always involved. What my best reasoning would be, let them not be partisan. Let them handle the population the best way possible without the violence. And everybody agrees with that. And for everybody to blame it on NRM and the president, it's as if we sit somewhere and then command the police react like this, because we don't.
Maybe that's what we think. Maybe that's what we think. Prof.
I'm in the movement. I'm not a simple man who stays in the village somewhere and I don't know what's happening. Nobody in NRM, nobody, even if you ask the Secretary General, that predicted what will happen in Kawempe. He also saw it like I saw it on TV. So to say that you, the NRM, you, the Secretary General, you are the people. Okay,
I'll come back to you on that one.
It's far-fetched. I think.
Let me ask Prof. Marashta here. There was a journalist that was injured. I think he has a damaged eye now.
Partly, yes.
Yes. And let me also just say about as she's coming in. What we saw on video was immediately the violence started. People started shouting, "The stones have started." So ultimately there's a possibility that maybe a policeman mishandled the journalist, or the stones, the volleys that were coming from the public towards the police and what they were doing hit the journalist. And that needs thorough investigation. We sympathize with the journalist. He must be treated. Somebody must take responsibility. And I think there must be an engagement between the police, the parties, and the leadership of parties, and in a way to control their support, enthusiastic supporters. And that is all I had to say. Okay?
Thank you. Yes. It's good that our NRM colleague, I'm an academic, so I don't take sides. I speak as objectively as possible. But I think it is not fair to say that nobody predicted that there would be any kind of over-enthusiasm, if I may qualify it. Yes. I started my submission earlier by saying that it is difficult to discuss this election without thinking of why we are having a by-election. So if you're a good election manager, you should be able to know that it would not be an election as usual, that there might be episodes of things like those that would erupt and you would prepare accordingly. To say that it is up to NUP to check their enthusiastic supporters and control and whatever, where would that place the role of the security agencies who are deployed there? Because that would, and how do they conduct themselves? I think we must always think about the role of trust in all this, that the population probably is not at their best moment with trust, that they will always trust that the right thing will be done, that if they go to a scene like that, they will not be mishandled, that they should also go prepared to face something like that. And because of the fatigue sometimes people have over experiencing some of these things over and over, they might come actually prepared. So it's one thing to look at this as a one-off event, but also it's another to see the patterns of the past and see how much of this is actually a repeat of past mistakes. And if it is a repeat of past mistakes, then we cannot feign ignorance and say that we never imagined this kind of thing would happen. I think as we head towards the journalists being hurt, journalists are casualties in these things because they're human beings who unfortunately have to do their job in the middle of this chaos when they happen. And it is only a given that they are going to suffer some consequence when things are not handled well, just like every other person who might suffer those consequences. So issues of double standards are not new. I don't even, sometimes I was telling my editor last week that I think I should stop my column because I'm really exhausted. And part of the reason is that you feel like these things have been said over and over and over time, and you're talking about the same things, and people get tired. You begin to sound like a broken record. The discussion around these things are not new. Double standards have been part of our politics for a long time. Patronage has been part of our politics for a long time. And all of these other fearful citizens, I think the researcher you're mentioning who talked about West Nile and people saying that they probably should not just vote. In the past, there have been cases of people even claiming that drones are checking if satellites are in villages, checking if you vote right or not. All of these things have been in existence. So let's just say that incrementally our politics acquires some elements of disruption that are not healthy for it. And when people have not been getting what they trust should be the right thing, they're bound to react a certain way that is not desirable. And it's part of the debate in the media studies we've had for a very long time, the idea that the genocide in Rwanda happened because the media did something about it. And in scholarly terms, you would say that, okay, the media may have played a role, but what was going on prior to that moment? What was being ignored up to that point? What were people dealing with up to that point? I think if you don't ask the why questions of the before, you're bound to blame this one episode and this one event and say this was just a one-off thing that was mishandled. But most times, there are very many signs that we can see, that we are interacting with, but that we just ignore because parts of them have been normalized. And we begin to see them as, these two will pass. And they pass, they go, and you go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
May I just...
just before, Joseph had wanted to make a comment.
I just wanted to ask
just 1 minute.
This time, around Kawempe by-election, if you have to have good research, practical research, please get out and see the people yourselves. Otherwise, the fatigue is not only on the population, it's only on the professionals themselves. The police themselves may be fatigued. They must have moved this man from an operation from somewhere, then in the middle of Kampala, and then everybody's you could say, is fatigued.
Yeah.
And if I tell him, I'm a product of a by-election. I know the politics around by-elections. It's not only, it doesn't only happen to maybe people now seeing, nope. Even where there is NRM only, by-elections are always like a battlefield. So it is the population themselves. You can't say somebody brings the fatigue to the people. No, everybody around this time is a bit of fatigue.
Robert is combative as well. Let's stop for a quick break and we'll come back to you. What would that trust come back? The one that Emily is talking about, that Professor is talking about here. If he said that.
No, he's not. And initially, I wanted to Robert, to your surprise, I wanted to credit you with your ability to acknowledge that whatever's happened in Kawempe is unacceptable, and that the tone is one which cannot and must not be encouraged. Except that I'm also surprised that you reconfine this to the police. And so, therefore, if you reconfine it to the police, I know NRM guys, when it comes to mentioning their commander-in-chief, people feel a bit jittery. No. Following this, the Bukeria by-election, that crude thing actually that was purely NRA versus NRA, Mr. Museveni came out allegedly strongly and saying that this kind of violence it has got no place in our polity. And so if he did so then, it is surprising that we allow these things to be unleashed on the people of Kawempe in a manner in which it is. And actually the important point is that the by-election is as a result of a death of a member of parliament whose death must be associated in many ways with him being tortured and subjected to torture by state security and state organs. And so it's not surprising, therefore, that the climate there is a climate of predominantly anger. But Emily, I think, was really wrapping it up for you. Oscar, last weekend, I was privileged to be one of the lead mourners of the former Inspector General of Police, the fantastic Inspector General of Police, Okoth Ogola, who was heading the police force during the last UPC administration when NRA was fighting. But there were never any kind of incidents like this. And by the way, he had a heroic send-off, just as it happens that today is also another former Inspector General of Police is being sent off. The point here is that I spoke to police commissioners, just like former Inspector Generals, including Okoth Ogola. Credit them and tell them that we are going to continue to campaign for mobilization and enhancement of resources for themselves and welfare, including making sure that they get training. But as part of that experience, I have actually continuously argued that the police need to learn community policing. And ironically, the other day, Kale Kaihura, of all people, was nearly boasting of it about community policing. So if you're doing community policing, you must also therefore include intelligence-led policing. And that's what Emily is saying. Part of the role of the police as the law enforcers should be able to know, predict, and in any case, prepare that in the unlikely event that violence emerges, you're sort of ready for it. You do not preempt by beginning to beat up people because you heard that these guys are very, very ugly, they're very angry, and they're coming from the other end of Kamocha. So you must whip them up. In a law-abiding society in which whatever you do, you must take responsibility and go ahead and qualify your matter to a Buganda Roads magistrate or whoever. It must be done properly. So on this occasion, it is wrong. But finally, then, if that is the case, I want a confirmation from Robert. Is it the case there, therefore, that we are saying today, and I'm talking on Capital Gang, and I know many of these guys and many of you guys are listening, are we going to hold the police accountable? Can we encourage our NUP colleagues and others, including perhaps Robert, your colleagues, Oscar, in the media? It's wrong for journalists to have been subjected to the manner in which the journalist was, and it's wrong for us
losing an eye in the by-election. Thank you, Joseph.
Are we going to hold these people to account?
Let's have Benjamin final comment, and then we'll come back to you, and then we'll change topics. But it seems that NRM has not sorted it out completely. Because some people are saying Hanifa Karadi is going to win Kawempe against the flag bearer of NRM. Is that possible?
Well, the
So it's the
in Kayunga, for example,
path is not very clear.
In Kayunga, for example, the results were altered at the point of declaration. So if you're asking about a possibility where NRM is involved, it is a possibility that cannot be ruled out, but not on account, but not on account of being voted for by the people.
Speaking as a lawyer, you should. Is that a fact? Is it verifiable?
Yes, it is. It is verifiable. Yeah. So but I think what the NRM cannot walk away from is the culture of political violence that it has propagated through the years. It is not restricted to Kawempe. And the other day, when there was a raid at the NUP headquarters, I was among the first people that reached there towards the end. Were 3 people. Myself, the Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, and the leader of opposition. Now, when the people who had been conducting a search wanted, what they called the search, wanted to leave, they didn't want their faces captured by the media. What do these security men do? They started beating journalists. They chased them up to the roundabout of Waise, so that these people can walk out. The NRM regime has made violence part of their political machinery. It's unfortunate that for them, it's a normal thing to beat a journalist. It's a normal thing. There's another journalist called Ashraf Kasri. During the presidential elections, his head was shattered in a similar manner like the one in Kawempe the other day. So these are not isolated incidents. There's a pattern of violence meted out by the security forces, by extension, as an armed wing of the political machinery of Museveni. I think we need to come to a realization, especially for the people that are developing apathy, that this culture cannot be wished away. And that there's not going to be, our God is a God of miracles. There's not going to be a point where Museveni abandons this culture, because this is the culture that has sustained him in power. Okay. But he can only be stopped by the people of Uganda through regime change. But without that, because you cannot, if food is what keeps you moving, then you cannot. If you stop eating, you'll die. So this is part of what sustains the regime, and I don't think they can abandon it.
Okay, I mean, at one point you say that they can change the result at the final
because they have
stage,
done it before.
And then at the next stage you say regime change. So you're like presenting impossibilities.
No, they are not the first organization in the world to thrive through manipulation of electoral processes.
Okay.
But
no, don't look at Joseph Otieno.
But it never stops such regimes.
He's a lawyer because he knows whatever was said of UPC was absolute.
It never stops such. It never stops such regimes from collapsing. You know, in Tunisia, the man used to get 90%, but the population rose up against him.
Okay.
So the change of regime is not restricted to only the works of Byabakama, but the resilience of the population can make any strong regime collapse.
Robert, final words on this topic, and the questions to you are two. The one, are you going to call for prosecution of those people who brutalized others, who brutalized a journalist to getting an eye smashed? And secondly, your party doesn't seem very well sorted between the two candidates.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was in Kawempe, as I said, and because we have two candidates in Kawempe who are NRM, non-NRM, and what I saw is that Kaladi was having more better traction on the ground than our official NRM candidate. I would encourage our officials in NRM to go on the ground. It is only 2 weeks, short time. And
when is the election?
The election is around 17th, 13th?
March 13th.
March 13th. So it's almost less than 2 weeks. We need foot soldiers on the ground, not foot soldiers like in a camouflage of uniforms and berets, but people to go, Kapelebyong we know, and canvass for our candidate. And in a civil way. Please walk and because some of these candidates look new to the people. They have just, so there's need to gain more traction. But also, we condemn, we detest what happened to Nalukola. It is very bad. I've known him, he's my friend, we talk. But what happened was very bad. And we need an investigation. And without missing words, I know an investigation will take place. And those who did what they did. But also, what is at play is that ever since social media arrived on the scene, we have seen security forces fight with journalists. Why? The security forces fear to be captured in action. And two, the population have also started throwing volleys, or the enthusiast supporters have known that when you throw volleys to the police, they'll respond with violence. That interplay must also be investigated. There must be negotiation. There must be engagement. Please, this is not the way forward. If in a simple by-election, in a simple capture, on social media, Uganda looks like a war zone, what will happen in a general election? So it's in everybody's interest to control our enthusiasm, to control our violence, even the population themselves. Yes. Please stop throwing volleys to the police. You know what they'll respond with. They'll not respond with sticks. They'll respond with the weapons officially given to them. So I think that interplay, it is in everybody's. I enjoy campaigning. I've campaigned like for 7 times through by elections, then elections, and I have enjoyed peaceful campaigns because you also enjoy it. You feel the people, they love you, and you enjoy that love. I cannot enjoy that love when I'm receiving volleys of stones running across streets. No. So
you organize a meeting for NRM guys in Chankwanz and tell them your good experience.
I have talked to the people. I have been in, and I've been, of all places, an MP in Nansana municipality. But you have never had me stones being thrown at me, running across streets, being chased by voters. I chase voters because what I preach in the population is, please, let us have the peace. People will enjoy the politics. People will enjoy this engagement. We have always called other party supporters to even come to our elections and they ask questions. Say, please come and ask, because I'm going to represent the whole of you. And I think Nalukola is in shock. And even somebody talked about Kalani also being harassed. She's also in shock because she doesn't expect, nobody expects violence in their campaigns.
Thank you. Emily, you want to, just a small mention?
One thing,
but yes, I have Edward saying the role of security agencies in the electoral process has always been a thorn for NRM. Overzealous and ill-advised intervention plays into the hands of opposition sympathies.
Yeah. That's correct, actually. But what I wanted to say is the role of social media. He says that ever since social media is here, journalists, most of those things are not necessarily even journalists. You know, when we were younger, I don't know about you people, I never heard of so many people dying. These days, I get death messages every time. I've grown up because I say it's because I've grown up and I must get the message. So before that, I thought people didn't die, but now I think everybody's dying every day. Why? Because I can see it. And that has happened to us as well. It's not because in 2001, 2006, 21 or whatever, violence was not there. But because the extent to which these things were exposed was even more limited than it is today. And the people who put some of these things on social media are not even journalists because they are in the vicinity. They are able to have the gadget that allows them to do what a journalist would have done. So I feel sorry for people who think that gagging the media is the solution. It's not, because we are bound to have these things.
You have really led very well into our second topic of the day, the media houses that went to UCC. Did you go, Emily?
No. I am not an MD. Thankfully, I'm not an MD.
The teachers will be in the second court. The teachers of
very soon it will be the teachers.
They also go because they're the trainer. The trainer of the trainer. So at one point they also go.
So were you surprised that this meeting was convened in the first place?
No.
You were not. Why weren't you surprised?
I was not because, well, it's my daily job to study media trends, and I have studied media trends for a long time. You know, in 2021, I was in a conference in Nairobi just a few days to the election, and we had, I was presenting a paper, and then I was asked what I thought would happen to the internet. And I said, I actually think they might shut down the internet this time. And they thought, no, you're being too much. And the internet was shut down because the thing is, you see these trends, you see where we are going, we see what sectors are likely to be captured when and next. Why? Because the media, unfortunately, people imagine that these things that are all over social media are a result of journalists in media houses. Most of them are not. I mean, our good Daily Monitor now covers, its lead stories are mostly on health, on education, on education. Yeah. Their lead stories today, Oscar, that I never thought 10 years ago Daily Monitor would do as a cover story. But they are able to do that now and expand because most of the things that they would have focused on are now on social media. There are things that everybody is putting out there. So you erroneously go after the Daily Monitors, the New Visions and whatever. You think you have sorted the problem. You haven't. So for me, I have seen... The reason I'm not surprised is that when I saw people of is it called Patriotic League? Being now,
No, I wasn't, because there is history to it. And history has taught us many things. There are very few things which happened today and have not happened previously. Whoever wants to do wrong things must make sure that they do them under the cover of darkness. Because most people, when they are doing wrong things, know they are doing wrong things. There has been censorship here. It's not new. But now we are going into another phase. All authoritarian leaders world over since time immemorial, from Hitler to Stalin to Pol Pot, they have had a problem with the media, and they have wanted to whip the media to walk in the path of what they believe is the right ideology. Now, and that's the trend. There have been pockets of resistance over time, because to date, there are, and like Professor has ably pointed out, media houses and practitioners censor themselves. But the regime is not satisfied. They don't want to stop at not saying what makes them uncomfortable. But they want the media houses to sing the songs they want to hear. Like Hitler and Nazism, how every media practitioner was required to propagate that ideology, that this is the right path for the country and for the world, the anti-Semitism ideology. Now, the NRM...
Isn't that an extreme comparison?
Because, Hitler threatened to annihilate Jews. Even here, we have people threatening to hang people. So there are many similar patterns between that and what is happening in Uganda. So the phase that we are entering now is a phase of total silencing of dissent. Total silencing of dissent. So the training proposed for the media practitioners and media owners is intended to help achieve that. That when you sit here and you are a talk show host, or you are a writer, you are a reporter, that you are not only required to limit what you say, but you are supposed to control what you say, but also know that you have a duty to praise the leaders. And I think now they have brought you the right person to train you, Baram, because he has excelled at praising his master. So even you, the media practitioners, must be able to learn from him, and every day, before you start your show, praise the leaders and those that claim under them. So, and I think that is the direction. So to me, it was not surprising. It is the new phase, and we, in one way or the other, we have allowed the people who manage the affairs of this country or mismanage the affairs of this country to get away with so much that now they think they can get away with anything. The commander of the chief of defense forces, who is now the one that has brought this initiative, General Muhoozi, who is the son of General Museveni, just tweeted about it. He said the media owners of media houses should have a meeting, Baram should coordinate this. And the meeting has been convened. Because you see, there are people like the chief of UCC that you have mentioned. For them, they have chosen a path of complying with every order that is given. Whether it is right, whether it is wrong, but what is important is whom has the order come from. And I always, unfortunately today we don't have representatives from the government and the security forces. I always used to...
We have NRM.
No, this one is from the party.
But you said the party and the state
people in the category of the UCC executive director.
Yeah.
That and I always tell them that even the people who were running the concentration camps of Hitler, the explanation was that we have a job to do. For them, it was a job. They would leave home and say, we have gone to work. But what you're doing is it serving humanity or destroying humanity? And I think that is the question that should occupy the minds of people that are in these positions of responsibility. That if you are working towards total silencing of the media, because the media plays a very critical role. If you are silencing, you are playing a role in curtailing the freedom of the media and other forms of freedom. That are you making a contribution in building the country, or you are making a contribution in destroying the country. Because today's headlines are different from tomorrow's history. Today, in the headlines, your friends may be congratulating you that you have been appointed the ED of this organization, or you have been promoted to the rank of general, but tomorrow's history will record you as a person who was the architect of curtailing freedoms, the architect of operations that made mothers weep. And this history will always hang on your children, on your grandchildren, but it will also damage the country. So I think that trend is very dangerous, and we must condemn it. Yeah, that's my take on that subject.
Yes, but I should caution you that if you bring Hitler in an argument, you will certainly lose the argument. So, because I think it's the extreme end.
Well, but you didn't start from the extreme end. He started from issuing threats to kill, and indeed killed.
Joseph, there are notes from that meeting, and the meeting says they want the media to be patriotic, conscious of security and insecurity, have responsible reporting, and not to say you have the freedom to report, but maybe report responsibly. What's wrong with having a meeting like that one? Because Benjamin thinks it was probably wrong to have a meeting, and the conveners of a meeting say it was not wrong to have a meeting, because Uganda has a lot of private media, so had we had government media, they'd also perhaps put out their agenda in that way.
Yeah, but maybe before Joseph comes in, I mean, what is wrong with it? There are so many things wrong with it. But the main thing that...
So many things wrong with having that meeting.
Yeah. Okay. So many things. So many things around the way it was convened and who convened it. Because it just tells you about the role of our laws. Because we have a governing, a regulatory body for the media. And yes, of course, it was the fact that UCC then came on board and became the chair of the meeting, the convener of the meeting. It sanitizes it a bit, but it doesn't make it wrong, because we haven't seen the order that came from the commander-in-chief that then the tweet was about. And then in a speed of lightning, you're having this meeting actually organized. There are things around it that contradicts our legal processes that govern the engagement of media and regulation of media in general. I think for me that is where engagement is not a bad thing, but how do you engage and who is supposed to engage on what matters?
And the purpose.
And the purpose of that. Because law is about, policy is about intention, the objective of the policy.
Joseph?
The media...
Actually, we could just stop for a quick break first and then get you. Welcome back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. Joseph, you were on microphone.
I was just saying that the media is the fourth estate. The first three states are the executive, led by Mr. Museveni. The next one is the legislature, parliament. At the moment, the person in charge is my fantastic sister, Anita Mong. And the judiciary, led by Owindolo. I always suggest that we, the citizens, we, the people, we are the fifth estate, and we are the most important. And so the idea really is that the traditional first three elements should be able to be independent. And we suggest, and I strongly suggest, that the media as a fourth estate must be independent. and that the 4 estates must be able to do everything else in the interest of the 5th estate, which is with the people. And this kind of arrangement is quite clear that somebody under the executive is instructing the media. Everything absolutely wrong with this, and Emily picked it up quite rightly from my mouth, that there was everything wrong with this meeting. The meeting was not called by UCC. The meeting was not called by the Ministry for National Guidance. The meeting was called as a result of, in quote, an outrage by Mr. Museveni's son, who happens to head the army. Now, where on earth does the army come what to lead on the process of what they're talking about? So if even at the heart of this were anything to do with hate speech or national security or whatever they claim, it's their responsibility to express, if it is, in this case, the army, in which case possibly would be the intelligence, possibly military intelligence, possibly civil intelligence, to raise it with the appropriate ministries, in which case I would expect Jacob or both to be the one to not raise this thing, basically, it's docket, to contact, in this case, the nearest person is Chris Baromuzi, and lead on this conversation. So the fact that it isn't, you quite clearly know that we are a military state led by quite clearly one estate, and the rest of the 4 estates were basically properties of the other. I was quite outraged anyway, because this is a replay of what happened. And particularly if you look at the outcome, including this very cheeky and insulting idea that you guys in the 4th estate are going to be going for cadre training. And you know that I really reject that word, cadre training, cadreship training. It's really patronizing that you guys have no clue. And I wonder, are you guys going to be trained on what? How to spell outrage, how to spell anarchy, how to edit sentences and words, how to play objective and fair, impartial reportage? Are you going to be taught the meaning of apathy? Are you going to be taught the meaning of ethical journalism and reporting? Are you going to be taught what investigative journalism is all about? Are you going to be trained on how to defend yourselves against NRM military police if they're going to be treating you the way they treated that journalist? It's absolutely not. No, the entire thing is really a process to prepare our country through intimidation, through blackmail, as I said earlier, and to continue building in the sense of fear, where a regime that after 40 years is losing track and losing traction is struggling to sustain itself. I think the media ought to have boycotted this, but of course we know certain media houses are owned by cadres, and in this case they're trying to basically facilitate the process. And because I also know, and I sympathize with some of the media houses, some of them have got to behave or else they lose their meager incomes and their meager resources. They may lose advice, and that's difficult. But that said, I think somebody has to take a position. This is something which is really wrong and shameful. But do you know what? As way back as 1987, part of my victimization, I use myself because there's an academic here, as authoritatively. We saw it. As soon as these guys came from the bushes and Emily's were young, these guys compelled all heads of institutions to go for indoctrination program in Chankwanzi. So it was compulsory, can you imagine, for head teachers, heads of institutions, heads of services. A number of public servants who refused to go to Chankwanzi lost their jobs. So how they're redoing it but 40 years later.
If government has instructed a civil servant to go to Chankwanzi, why would the civil servant refuse?
No, that time.
I mean, even today, like...
No, at the time, there's a bunch that had come from the bush, and they're saying that, well, you're a head teacher, you've been heading Mwiri, for example, the excellent school before you break it up over 40 years. Your job is to go to Chankwanzi and learn how to sing Nyongo Nyongo, yes, NRA, in order for you to come back and know where to get pens and know where to get equipment for your libraries and know where to get equipment.
I dare say you'd lose that argument as well, because if you're a new government, you want to project an ideology.
No.
Probably a new ideology.
No, but
probably you wouldn't have a problem with that.
No, you guys, it must be a contradiction. If it's North Korea, you do it. I'm also a student of
Joseph, you are very positive, but we also, some adults, we remember the UPC projects so positively. We remember a lot about it.
But they never indoctrinated anybody. They never sent anybody for compulsory military training to teach them what UPC is. It was never done.
A discussion for another time. Robert, we come to you.
Yeah, but I think every government cares about how the media behaves, how they project their information. Even the CNNs we see, the BBCs we see, somewhat have a particular narrative they are projecting, depending on...
They take editorial positions.
Yes. So I think it's time for soul searching. Everybody is trying to say what is happening. We have seen incidences like somebody who came to Parliament to ban himself. What was his idea? What did he want to project to the population? What did he want to spark?
What was this desperation about?
Yeah, what is this?
Because
what
it
was
is
this
not easy
desperation?
to
ban up yourself?
Yeah.
So many people are copycatting, and I think also in government somebody is thinking, what do we do? Should we have a country which just rolls on by itself? Can't we give direction? Not indoctrinating, but per se. Because as you said, I'm a Merian, 311.
Good man.
And I see is that no, not the T-shirt of the.
Yeah.
This is the one.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, for 6 years. So.
No wonder I've been having some warm spot for you.
I know. And we had the freedom to speak. We had to do. We debated. Yeah. I think from there on, we got into even where we are in politics. We are a bit decent. So you want a country which has decent people. The narratives that go out in the media, much as people are free to speak what they want, but somehow let us guide ourselves. This country belongs to all of us. Even if you went to Chankwanzi and they told you what they told you, but what's happening in the studios here is different. You don't first think about what you are told in Chankwanzi to speak. So I think we are free to say what we want, but let us also be cautious. This country can be rocked or thrown off balance by sudden something out of our newsrooms. What do? We don't want to be responsible for throwing this country to waste by sounds and voices, and that's why people were surprised by the way Trump and his friend were having that exchange way in the open. What do they want? What do they want people in Ukraine to think? What do they want people in America to think? So we must control the way we speak to the general public. Not in a way to drive their thinking or something, but at least to have a sane country. We were surprised by the Kawempe incident. Why? Why were we all surprised? You don't see an NRM saying, "Oh, that was very good." Why? It's because we don't want such dirty learning to be playing out there. Why? For what reason? Why didn't the army or the police or anybody who was handling that situation handle it in a better way? In a better way, control the population in a better way. Why? So we waste a lot of money campaigning and calling these tourists to come to this country. But is that what the picture? What our visitors to see? We don't want that. So somebody who is thinking about the media is also in a way soul searching. What do we do? How do we manage this society together without putting and once you go to Chankwanzi is thousands and millions are passed through Chankwanzi. But is that what you see on the street? People behave differently.
And I think that's the point, if you don't mind, that I want to add, because I think it's a very important point, Oscar, what Robert is talking about, and I think part of what Emily was saying much earlier, and I think is genuinely the national concern, the tone of our polity today, and what it might lead to, including the language here, although I don't necessarily agree with the process, the thing called hate speech. I think this country needs soul-searching, as you said, but we need a leadership that will create an enabling environment in which we're able to have a national conversation, agree to disagree, but do so in such a manner in which it is not them versus us, and is one that does not lead us, unfortunately, to the likes of the Rwanda. Some of us have been very, very, very clear that actually whatever we do must be one that brings us together rather than divides us down, particularly one that does not infan hate and violence. But it must be from both sides, or rather from all sides. And the leadership is really in your hands, NRM.
And I was saying, the way it has started maybe is the wrong way. Should have formally been through the maybe UCC, Ministry of National Guidance, and through the former ways. But maybe
Robert, you should add that there didn't seem to be any people here saying it is the way the meeting was called that was probably wrong.
The threats around it.
Pardon?
And the threats around
but when you look at the content of a meeting, it was probably a good meeting.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying, Robert?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that maybe it started on a wrong footing, and the narratives that
because no media owner saying we were there and we were threatened and we were,
the words of leadership are insulting to other people. But maybe somebody wanted to say patriotism, nationalism, or some sort. But too many people are threatened by the narratives we use. So which threaten even people who would want to engage.
Yeah, because words count, and Oscar, for me, it's the way we introduce difficult things in this country.
Yeah.
We started introducing the role of military in small things, and said, okay, let the military construct the road. In innocent things, let the military now go to.
What do you call them innocent things?
In things that didn't seem like they had a huge impact on the general make of the country. But when now you start the role of the military in elections, the role of the military in organizing the media sector. Now, because we have already come to a point where we've seen the military in other things and it's normal.
By the way, let me just give us some information. I have a catalogue of projects that the Army has done, but it was also started because of a frustration in the corruption in tendering, that the government at one point said, no, we cannot construct a road at 2 billion, at 3 billion. Let us use this alternative.
The other day, a soldier in that department killed himself talking about corruption in the construction unit of the army, citing it as the reason for his suicide.
That's well, but also the same vices that catch up with the ordinary people also catch up with the officers. So, but it was with the good intention to cut costs in construction.
Yeah, I think the intentions are a good thing. I don't mind any engagement, and there are various ways of engaging the media sector that are also known, that are in the books of law, that could also achieve the same results. But if you start on the footing of, if you don't come to my meeting, your media house will not be licensed, that's a threat that cannot be taken lightly. It's because now you have to show up no matter what, and we could have all shown up even when it was not coined in that language. I think for me it's the language, it's the manner in which it is done, it's the veiled threat around it. But otherwise, what we would have loved...
I can send you the notes of the meeting.
What we would have
having
loved.
showed up, the meeting was okay.
So the meeting was okay. That's a good thing. Hopefully there will be follow-up meetings. But for me, what I would like to see is that the media sector, which still is governed by a law of 1995 that is obsolete, that a media council that has never been fully constituted and is dysfunctional, that the UCC Act that was supposed to govern the entire electronic and communication sector is probably not up to date given the changes that are happening in the landscape, in the media landscape. Those are things that we should be concerned about, that we also want better for media. We want an enabling environment for the media. We want journalists to be able to practice in an environment that allows them to do their job and to be all those things. And the laws are there, but they're not able to help us. We were promised that there would be an overarching law for media and it would be introduced and people would be engaged, our contributions would be brought on board, and those are the things we want. We are not against the media being governed or regulated in some form, but how?
Yeah. Benjamin, I don't know, from your position, you're saying perhaps the media was invited to be gagged or threatened or controlled. But if, and this is factual, a lot of Uganda's formal media, i.e. Newspapers or radio, television, owned by NRM cadres. So why would it then be necessary to threaten their own people?
Are held by so many, including NRM cadres. Not all of it.
No, I don't know, but you may not know.
America is really good at their PR, man.
Robert, you may not know, but the majority is owned by NRM cadres. Yes.
Like I mentioned earlier, the meeting is not introducing censorship and gagging, but is entrenching it. It's true that most media houses are owned by NRM politicians, but even those that are not owned by the NRM politicians have in one way or the other to bow for business and for survival. Revocation of licenses. You know that, for example, there's one radio station that has operated for years with a temporary license because it is a method of control. But this meeting was initiated by a tweet from the Chief of Defense Forces. In which he said, having been offended, I think there was an article that offended him. And he said, going forward, all the licenses of media houses will be controlled by my office. And I think you can find that tweet if he has not yet deleted it on his X handle. And he said, going forward, they will be managed under my office. And there is going to be a cadreship training, and Baram is going to coordinate this. And immediately that followed. But for me, the take home is that there is a deliberate effort to control the psyche of the population, to drive the thinking of the population into a certain direction. And the media is the mode through which, controlling the media is the mode through which that can be achieved. The censorship as is today maybe is not, has not been sufficient, and they want to take it to another level where now people are not just playing by the rules, but they are being agents of a certain idea, which in my view goes against the tenets of the industry, because media practitioners must be objective, and their core role is to objectively inform society. Now, if they are being co-opted as a channel of promoting a certain thinking of an individual and those that follow him, it is hijacking the industry and taking it away from its core responsibility.
Yes. Joseph, you'd agree with Benjamin?
Absolutely.
And I should add, of course.
Of course, and it's consistent with what my arguments earlier. And I was rather concerned that you guys did not seem to agree with me, particularly when I was strongly objecting to the idea of a Chankwanzi indoctrination process, primarily for the point that has just been ably made. But in any case, really, I think after these experiences and interactions, it's very, very difficult that average media practitioners, or perhaps particularly mid-ranking editors, would find it comfortable, releasing and stories and particularly investigative stories, heavy stories, that with the impartiality and the sense of responsibility that would others require. Considering the shambolic messes we've been having in this country in the last possibly even nearly several months, and considering the fact that we're going towards elections, it's not that. But as I said, I repeat, the fact that this thing is held as a result of a tweet by the son of the president, who says as it is, and actually something which I was not going to mention, the argument about the hate speech, which again, as I said earlier, all of us must take responsibility, particularly people like me, whom we know we have following and we are leaders and we are political leaders. We must be absolutely responsible, and particularly those of us from Miri who gave this country the future. We must take responsibility. So when it comes to the things about hate speech, unfortunately, it's Mr. Museveni's son's tone in the last several months alone. If you can take the language that was directed at Besigye, the language directed at NUP, the language that was directed at the other army general from Tess, I think I can't remember the name. They're quite clearly unacceptable, and I know people find it quite discomforting to say this. The context and language of Bachwezi on a Twitter handle by somebody who's supposed to be a defense chief who should not be raising these kind of things. It sounds rather rich that it's coming from that angle. And for me, responsible as a chair, while I'm saying no, these things, we must come together and make sure that doesn't happen. It's a false start that it has come from him. And finally, I was old enough in the 80s when NRM was in the bush. These guys pushed, and Robert, they pushed a rather bad language politics, of almost them versus us, Wuno Oyo Mucholi. That happened, and I've said it on this program. The point is, we need to let that go and come together and build this going forward. But you can't build a foundation if you want to do that by doing this. And then finally, you will only do it through action. So leadership must come from the Republic House, number one, at Entebbe. The tone must be set by the president. The posture must be provided for and laid by the president. And we create an enabling environment in this country where we live in tolerance and harmony amongst one another, and we learn to agree to disagree.
Yeah. And Oscar, one thing, I think there's no way we can, we have to admit that the media has issues. There are many problems in the sector. And this time would not be enough to discuss the challenges that the sector faces. And that is just one of the many challenges. And it would be a welcome idea to actually engage on how do we address the issues in the media sector, because they're quite enormous. And depending on where you're sitting, there are many, many issues. I think earlier he talked about paying journalists well and so on. There are many. But if we're not going to have a more focused and robust approach to dealing with the issues in the media sector, and imagine that a cadre training will sort these things out, we are mistaken. And many of the things that annoy us on media, I will repeat again, are not things that are being done by responsible journalists at the Daily Monitor, for example. No. Those ones only annoy when there was a
suggestion at that meeting that maybe social influencers who have more than 10,000 followers, that they should be licensed.
That's rather desperate.
Would that work?
No, that's rather desperate. Because as I say, why would it be at the same time, Oscar, if you don't mind, just 30 seconds. If we want to guard against this, that's why I was talking about leadership. Politicians, particularly myself and others, led by Mr. Museveni, if we don't want to be exposed, we just shouldn't do it. Yeah. Some of these things being reported by the media, even if actually some of them are at fault. And some of the guys in the media are particularly fairly weak guys. And by the way, Emily, I am a mentor to many journalists over several years. No, if they get some of these things wrong, and sometimes they'll get some of these things wrong, many of them, the other bigger cases, are things that are out there. I know a media house that was summoned to State House, and the editor simply said that, look, you talk about these things, but look, the information we put in our headlines are provided by your own people. In any case, people see these things. Okay.
Yes, Robert.
Yeah, in the world where the non-state actors, the non-formal media controls the narrative, at least it's in everybody's interest.
To self-censor.
To self-censor.
And be responsible.
Have a media that is formally organized. The universities must also be engaged in this engagement, because they train the journalists, they train communicators, but they seem not also being in charge of the information that we are consuming. So I think the start, maybe somebody saying, where my brother says what it is, and sometimes he says what it is not. So maybe through these conversations, we'll also wish that he is also engaged on the way he speaks, the position he's holding.
Not maybe, he must.
The position is occupying. It does not give him all the leeway to say whatever he wants.
As we are coming to the end of the show, Robert, as we're coming to the end of the show, it's so interesting that we are here on Gang the morning after an American show with the president and vice president meeting with the president of Ukraine under siege. So what training do you need for those media people? Should they have switched off the
TV,
the live broadcast?
Can you imagine? And which editor would agree to switch that over?
Yeah.
So because you want them to be patriotic and so on.
The world is moving so fast. I don't know where we will stop with this kind of big brothers having such altercations on social media, live broadcast. I think it is in everybody's interest, especially our national managers, to find a way of, just as you say, media is critical to national building. Therefore, we better get engaged with the media people in all its professions, in all its
media central, yes.
Yeah, not in a way to indoctrinate people, but to find a better way of communicating with each other. And when you want to develop, there must be, all our forces must be pointed to a particular direction that we want to develop, want to move away from here. We want people to stop shouting at each other and engage and talk in a way that is organized and to a particular instance. So we are also very shocked by what happened on TV. I said I even delayed home when I was still looking at Trump, still enjoying. For me, I just want peace, whether how it comes, wherever it comes, who brings it, I just want peace.
You nearly forgot Kapelebyong.
The tweet over there says from Atoki John on X, formerly Twitter, says, Mwalimu, thank you for the program. We are here in Bulova listening. I was in Bara when Winnie Byanyima was competing with Ngoma Ngime. What happened to Nalukola in Kawempe is nothing. Kakoza Mutale and his men made people cry like babies. It was a battle.
I can confirm. I was a high school student at the time.
So thank you so much. Guests on the show, Associate Professor Media Studies, Uganda Christian University, and economist Emily Comfort Marachto. It was pleasure meeting you after reading a lot.
For the good university that has come up.
Joseph Otieno, most welcome. Thank you very much.
I'll drag Emily here.
You drag Emily here next time. Forever UPC. I don't know which UPC, but
the UPC of the
Benjamin Katana. Thank you so much, Honorable Robert Kasule Sebunya. NRM was well represented by you. Feisty battle. Star Cafe, thank you very much, and to all our brothers and sisters in the Muslim community, Ramadan Mubarak. I am Oscar Semoyam Soke, and I shall see you next week.